Well, we had the notion that the King's justice would put right deviations from such that were in some part of his kingdom, and his justices travelling round would carry this out, put things right. You know, in the separation of powers view of political constitution, at that stage there was this great separateness that the justice himself would determine what the law is to be, in effect, regardless of what was actually being, in effect, carried out locally. And that was binding. I mean, it had the king's power behind him. To do this more effectively, we've got, in a sense, the legislature, which originally was basically the Lords, not the Commons as dominated, it's seen later on in history, but the Lords would sort out and, if you like, agree with the king or what the law really does need to be. And we find then that the legislature therefore has authority over the judiciary. In that sense, it lays out what the basic legal structure is. And so we find that the justice travelling around the country starts to be subject to what he knows this code of law is. So he no longer has the freedom. He's become an executive of, hasn't he? You know, the French judge who says, look, this is not a court of justice. This is a court of law, by which I understand him to mean he's bound by what the law is, much as he would like to meet now your understanding of what's fair, and what perhaps he thinks is fair too. He's bound by the law. He's no longer this independent agent, as it would be seen from the local lord's point of view, acting though on behalf of the king. He's now an executive carrying out the rules laid down in Parliament, which may leave him some discretion. You know, you can have a bigger or smaller penalty, but basically he's constrained. He was always constrained, of course, by what really he understood the will of the king to be. I mean, if it was really pushed, if the Lord appeals to the king could say, obviously, to his travelling minister, travelling justice, well, no, I want so-and-so. Oh, okay, right. You know, we have this tripartite notion that there's the judiciary, the legislature, and there's the executive. The executive carries out the law. Oh, well, then the king's justice starts to be reduced to not a justice agent, but more an executive agent carrying out the legislative imposition on the kingdom. Things change through time. I found with the Theosophical Society was interesting, you know, when I was thinking of it. The president, say the national president, seems to be the key top person for the country as regards these society's control. But in fact, he works through a trust board, and the trust board has members who have the power of deciding what the policy is. Now that means that the chairman of the board is the one really with the power now, not the president. So it's a bit like a university. You know, you've got the chancellor, who supposedly is the one in charge of the university, but of course he's not at all. He's the PR head. The actual one with the power is the vice chancellor. And he, of course, is typically on site where the university is and does the day-to-day top management control and so on. And we found this, like in the British Constitution, the way history turned out, that the king, who was at the top of this setup, as the centuries progressed, became simply the public relations body. You know, all the pageantry and pomp. But the real power is with his chief executive, which is the Prime Minister. Because the Prime Minister is actually chairman of all the important committees that the government exercise and has control and influence on the lot. So it's not the king that has the power any longer. It's the Prime Minister, who humbly was declared himself to be the equal of equals, first among equals. Yes. Look, it's all fiction. It's the received wisdom. The reality may well be that they're all pawns in the game. There's hidden power behind the throne, behind governments, and, if I may speak now, in my official capacity as an economist, it all comes down to economics. Do you know, I got this from the very beginning. I went to Sussex University, which was at Brighton, for an interview before I actually went to university. And I was thinking of going there because I thought I'd do international relations. Now, that meant that the three guys that interviewed me, academics, were not economists. Now, I'd done some economics, but they held school economics in contempt and felt that, well, any economics you learn will have to be unlearned here first. We've got to unlearn your school economics and get the reality of what the theory now is about. I felt this was very arrogant and, of course, very dismissive of me. I wasn't impressed. And at some point, of course, they asked a question which was totally unfair, really, to me, which was not economics, which was the thing I was, reasonably conversant with, certainly more than them, it seemed, even though I'd only done A-level. He said to me, what do you think the basic cause of war tends to be? I said, economics inequality. Well, this was far too simple for them. Totally unacceptable. They wanted a political reasons or sociological reasons or cultural reasons and differences, or it was no. There's far more theories than that. It's not as simple as that. Oh my goodness, no. And of course, I felt, oh well, you're not economists. So we were dismissing each other, really. When it comes to it, they said to me, now, if we offer you a place here, will you accept it? I said, no, I'm going to Essex. Because Essex had accepted me purely on my grades that I'd got in the exams, which were good, Yeah. So let me speak as an economist. I think the real power is going to be in economics. Who has the control of resources? Power over resources usually means whoever has the spending power in the market. are the ones that run the world. That's the reality. It has ever been so. Could have been tribal chieftains, or the strongest man, or the one with the most mana, the most credit with the people, the most weight, the most power. But in a market economy, it's the one who has the most market power. They control the economy, and therefore the way resources go. Cannot understand what you're looking at unless you understand the distribution of power. And in a market setting, it comes down to finance control. Who actually has financial power? Now you might say, well, in a democracy we're saved for that problem because clearly the people collectively have all the spending power. Collectively, yes, but political democracy is not economic democracy. And economic democracy does not work without love and wisdom. As Marx pointed out, unless you transformed the nature of man from what it is to what you need, no perfect system is going to work. And you'll be left in the end with the system we have. And you may find that very unfair and long for a utopian output. Well, that actually means you're looking for the kingdom of God, not the things of this world. This world is a mixture of good and, I don't wish to say evil, but in a sense, it's an amazing mix of understanding and ignorance. Probably is a better way of describing it. And it gives us great opportunity to learn accordingly what we value and what we don't, what we are drawn to and what we are repelled by. And when you come to truly want the things of heaven, well, there's no point in you staying here any longer, is there? You'd better get there. I don't mean that the enlightened should commit suicide or sacrifice themselves. I do mean that they would think it quite wrong to impose the order of heaven upon the earth. And there's no need, because if you want heaven, it's already there. The earth is here for those that need to learn that really they want the kingdom of heaven. Thank you, Dad. So we get the Jesus teaching, my kingdom is not of this world. If it was, my servants would fight. And don't you realize, says to one of his disciples, I could avoid this that I'm about to do. I call upon 12 legions of angels. But how would it be accomplished if I do that? He'd come to, in the story, call our hearts to the love of God. You can cast that story of the cross as an incredible act of grace and loving kindness. And the literalists have done that in the Christian faith, faithfully, you could say. They've said, look, you were destined for hell, and because of his sacrifice, you've been rescued. If you trust and believe on him, surely now you want to do that, don't you? And of course, the more you're convinced about that presentation of the story in that way, that, you know, he's paid the price for your sins in his blood and pain and suffering, and that it's God himself doing this. My goodness, are you moved? And you choose to believe. Well, what could be wrong with the religion then, if it achieves that? They believe and you get saints who believe and trust in the goodness of God. No, they don't. They trust in the story of this man and are devoted to him as the story presents. But the story is never complete, and it's not literal. And if you take it as literal, then it's extremely incomplete. And the man of reason who seeks truth will immediately say, but that doesn't quite make sense, that's not consistent, why so-and-so, what about such and such? So that the one that actually seeks the truth for real will be repelled by your religion, and as a consequence may be so inoculated against whatever religious solutions are that he won't touch it with a barge pole from then on, and he becomes what you call the secular scientist. What you would say was one that was lost, but I wouldn't. Having been an academic, I've been amongst people who, no question of it, very genuinely are seeking good. It's just that they haven't found it in some trite, cliched version as they see it. They're seeking truth in wisdom and understanding, and they do have purpose. They want a good world. In fact, it's arguable that at least most, if not all, persons want that which is good. It's just that we don't yet fully understand and grasp what is good. And we will certainly reject biblical wisdom, for instance, if it's associated with a religion that we see as anything but good. Witness the history of the Christian faith. It's not anything but good in many instances indeed. So we're left rightly with not seeking religion but seeking truth. That sounds more like the Holy Spirit. This is like, this is life eternal, to know thee, the only true God. To know, not follow these religions. Everything in the world seems to be this mixture of knowledge and ignorance. Coming to worship knowledge. Now, of course, we actually want the knowledge that will give us those things that we value, and what we value might be completely up the creek at the minute because of the way we've been living. As a member of a religious society or a member of a secular part of it or whatever. But we seek truth. It's in John 17. We realize we need to know you, the truth of you, Lord. What does truth seem to mean in this physical, tangible, material world? Well, it's plagued, as we see it, with uncertainty, because we find uncertainty very costly to us. So an understanding of truth is not so much knowing what the truth is, but finding that which seems to work. And when it doesn't work, we try and work out a different understanding and theory that gives us things that work rather better. And that turns into our procedure of seeking the truth. Scientific experiment, if you like, in a very formal way, but, does this diet work for you or doesn't it? Regardless of the theory behind it. And if it does, we feel we're nearer the truth than we were before. This one works, and that's what I value, the thing that works. And in what sense does it work? It brings in what I value. And of course the wisdom immediately says, yes, but are your values consistent? Are they the values that really are in your best interest? And is even the notion of your best interest actually not a feasible consistency, because much of your best interest relies upon cooperation of whole groups of people. Witness your industries and political decision making and so on, and law and order. So are you sure that your values, or rather, you're rather becoming clear that your values need to include others? Else you will confound yourself. We're coming to know God, you see, we're coming to know community. Civilization is a big step in that direction. I mean, a phenomenal step in that direction. You can't compare the quality of living in a civilization compared to living in one that is not, and you're left at the mercy of the elements and the wild animals and the wild man across the river who wants your bit of land. I mean, it's a nightmare, you see. So, we are actually in the pursuit of truth, and truth of a particular nature, namely, what is the truth of the matter? What is truly in our benefit? What do we really value? What do we need to value that will make life happier and better in some sense as we understand it? And that actually involves rationalizing our understanding rather better too, because it's not too consistent. You know, I like, I don't know, tobacco, but it's killing me. Oh, I'm in a fix here. I do like tobacco, but I do like living. Well, I'm not too worried about the future. I just smoke now. No, I'm very worried about the future. I'm going to give up smoking. Get out of my way. You know, you're going to choose you this day whom you will serve. It's there, isn't it? Choose you this day whom you will serve. It's very important. And who you serve, well, that will depend on what you know about them. So you need to follow what you value, or check what you value first and see if what you're following is what you value. And most people are not. They're following what's imposed on them by society, or by their culture, or by their religion, or whatever. Or by the person who's got the money that they're reliant on at the present. You know, so they say, well, I'm seeking freedom. In a sense, yes. Freedom from certain things, but freedom to have certain other things. And also I'm seeking a freedom of somehow being able to find out what truly is of value to me, which I need to sort out as well. Yes, it's life eternal to know Thee, the only true God. I think I can say what my God is. It's a personification of what I value. Now, have I got that right? And that's what I'm now finding out. And I can find that out here in this opportunity of the material world, of uncertainty, change. The contrast of good and evil, so to speak, as we classify it. To choose the good and avoid the evil. And so I change who I am, because I change gradually what my values are accordingly. And loosely speaking, you could say it's in this pursuit of truth. You could say the Theosophists have it right again here, that in some sense the true religion is this, the pursuit of truth. And if religion is not that, well, it's just not valid. It's as simple as that. It's the truth that will set you free. Free indeed. But it's the truth about certain things, not how to make a cup of tea or how to build an incredible city, But possibly what we're also very concerned with these days, how do I build an incredibly good society and community? There may be very primitive attempts at this by those that have the power. It doesn't mean to say they're not doing what they see as best. It's just not necessarily best for everybody. And in particular, you don't see it as best for you because you don't have those values, perhaps, that they seem to be maximizing. Jesus, person that we have, says, "And I am come that they might have life and have it more abundantly." You look at the story of Jesus, not a religion, Christianity, and what do you think? Do you think he's got the answer or not? Can you do better? Fine. No. Try it and see. You could be right. It's all uncertain. It is, after all, only a story. But it seems to be a never-ending story. This one seems to be quite wonderful. I don't mean the Christian religion. I mean the story of Jesus. I look at a very narrow part of it, of course, as you know, John's Gospel. I'm not terribly accepting of what's written, but what it might imply, and it does seem to be enough, a present for what I want. So I'm going for it, for all I'm worth. Love you, Dad. Thank you, Dad.